So what happens all the time in Florida? People don't buy enough insurance and they get in car accidents. We represented an elderly man who was struck by a Mercedes crossing an intersection. It was a pedestrian motor vehicle crash. Our client suffered catastrophic injuries. And in this one case, we got lucky, the client got lucky, that Mercedes had $2 million of bodily injury coverage. And that kind of thing usually doesn't happen in Florida. My name's Eric Mausner. I'm a personal injury lawyer in Miami, Florida. And on this channel, we'll be talking about various kinds of issues that pertain to personal injury cases. We represented an elderly man who was crossing an intersection when he got struck by a Mercedes SUV. He had the right of way, he had the signal, he was struck right on the crosswalk at a four-way intersection, and he suffered horrible injuries. Fracture to his knee, fracture to his back, he had a fracture to his shoulder. Some of these injuries required surgeries, required extensive hospitalization. He had pre-existing health conditions involving his heart and his blood pressure, so that required additional treatment, and it created additional complications. When this crash first happened, all we had was a he said, she said dispute. We knew that his version and that the witnesses stated he got struck at the crosswalk. What we did was we hired an investigator who went to the intersection, went to the gas stations and the commercial establishments at the intersection, spoke with management, looked for surveillance videos, and ultimately he was able to find a camera that was pointed at the intersection, which captured the crash. And we were fortunate that we were still inside the 30 or 60-day window where the surveillance camera retains footage, and we were able to capture the incident on video. And it happened as we thought it did. It happened based on the crash report, as the crash report indicated. And it was a remarkable piece of evidence. It created a scenario where the defense and the driver of the Mercedes could not dispute what happened. So once we got the video, we were able to establish liability. We knew the other side couldn't fight that, and ultimately they admitted liability. And then our focus became just on damages, and we were able to focus on our client's injuries. He was able to focus on getting healthy, which is obviously most important, but then we were building up his damages for the purposes of the case so he could recover the most money possible. And we brought in experts. We brought in an economist. We brought in a life care planner. We brought in expert physicians, such as an orthopedic doctor. We brought in a cardiac surgeon to address any of his cardiac health issues that were aggravated in that crash. This is how we built up his damages. So we knew what his past medical costs were. We knew what his future medical costs were, so that he was adequately compensated and that he could get healthy and he could be comfortable in his elderly years. One of the things we did in this case was we had the client sign a power of attorney so his daughter could make some important decisions regarding his health and finances should something go wrong. He was elderly, he suffered serious injuries, his pre-existing injuries were aggravated, and that's an important topic to talk about, is that the law in Florida allows for the aggravation or exacerbation of pre-existing injuries, and that you can recover if an accident makes your injuries worse. And it's important. How do you prove that? You need the doctors and you need the medical evidence to prove that, so we can show that you had this condition before the crash and it became worse after the crash. So one of the things we did in this case was we protected our client because he was elderly and he was so injured. We wanted to make sure that he had a family member who was there to make important financial and medical decisions for him. So we had him sign power of attorney. He actually created a will. He did not have a will at the time of this accident. So we wanted to make sure he was protected and that we could make easy decisions for him. So we had him sign estate documentation during the case. So when is an appropriate time to accept a settlement in a personal injury case? And there's no clear answer. That's always going to depend. It depends on the injuries and damages. It depends on the treatment. What does the client need, past and future? Are there complications in the case? Are there evidentiary problems? Are there witness problems? Are there damages problems? So When do you want to settle your personal injury case? That's a conversation you need to have with your personal injury lawyer, and it's going to depend on a lot of factors in your case. In this particular case, we settled our case at mediation. Actually, it settled a couple days after mediation, and that was the right time because we knew the client's damages, both past and future, so we were in a position to accept a fair sum of money from the insurance company. There's a lot of takeaways from a case like this from both sides of it, both from the defendant's perspective and the plaintiff's perspective. So if you do get involved, if you are in a serious injury case where you suffered serious injuries, you do want to lawyer up. You want the lawyer to hire an investigator. You want to try to preserve evidence, get the video footage. You are going to want to make sure you're getting proper medical treatment, of course, and that's something your law firm, your personal injury lawyer can help with. And then on the other side, if you find yourself being sued in a personal injury case, you want to make sure you have enough coverage. And that's something you should get the time you purchase, finance, or lease your car. It's something you should do right now. Make sure you have adequate coverage in case you get hit by somebody, or in the event you weren't paying attention and you hit somebody else. You want to make sure you're adequately covered because you're going to get sued. And a plaintiff's attorney may come after you to try to get compensation for the person that you injured. And if you don't have enough insurance, you may be forced to come out of pocket to settle your case. One of the important takeaways from this case is to have good car insurance, especially in Florida. My client in this case was lucky because we had $2 million of bodily injury coverage, but that doesn't happen often. There's no law, there's no minimum requirement in Florida to have bodily injury coverage or something that's called coverage, uninsured motorists. That protects you when you get hit by a car who doesn't have enough bodily injury or doesn't have it at all. And Florida is one of the last few states in the country that does not require drivers to purchase bodily injury coverage. This is a legislative political issue, but right now, Florida is riddled with underinsured drivers everywhere, drivers that don't have the right coverage, and the general public just doesn't know that. One of the biggest misunderstandings is that everybody thinks they have full coverage. But what is full coverage? Full coverage actually does not mean full coverage. It's missing something called coverage oftentimes, and that's the coverage that protects you when there's not enough bodily injury coverage. I hope you enjoyed this video today. We'll be posting a lot of informational videos discussing various issues in personal injury cases and various topics. Please stop by, please follow us, and if you ever do need us, please call the number on our website.